Do you like Marilyn Monroe? Most of us do. You're going to love this episode of Later with Bob Costas, where Jack Lemmon recounts working with Marilyn and what it was like on the set of Some Like It Hot and their relationship and what he thought of her. Yeah, I didn't spell his name right or Sid Caesar's name right, but I've learned my lesson. You little digital kids with your AI spell check and all that stuff. So lucky. My errors are captured forever.
Thanks for staying up later. We're back again with Jack Lemmon covering as much of the stories of his major films as we can.
Oh, good.
If I had to make a list of my favorite films, somewhere on there would be Some Like It Hot, just for pure entertainment and something that makes you smile and holds up. You know, you can see it the fifth or sixth time, and you're still going to smile. These two guys, they're musicians. They witnessed the St. Valentine's Day Massacre. They hide out from the mobsters by joining an all-girl orchestra. And you guys have to be in drag.
Yeah. That was Billy Wilder, I think, at his very height of his wonderful powers as a writer and director. That, we followed that with In a Row, it was Some Like It Hot, The Apartment, then Days of Wine and Roses came in the middle, and then Irma la Douce. That's wild. Those four in a row, whew, that's something one dreams of, you know, to have four like that in a row. But Billy was just, I still think it's the best comedy script that I've ever read.
Tony Curtis was here a couple of years ago. He said that he couldn't quite get it for a while, falling into being a woman, but that it came more easily to you.
But I think he's right in a way, but the difference being that I rejected any thought of trying to do it well. And I spoke to Billy about it, and he said, I understand what you're getting at. It's like an actor coming up and saying, I'm deliberately not going to try to play this part. And you say, I beg your pardon, you better sit down. What? But in a sense, I said, I think for my character, I think that I'm the klutz. I should not be able to walk as well as this great. Billy hired a guy, I don't know what his name was. He was the foremost female impersonator in the world. He would not fly. They brought him over on a liner from Paris to coach us. He lasted 3 days. He said, Curtis will be wonderful. Lemmon is hopeless, and I quit. And he did. He quit. And he went back. But Billy said, do what you're doing. What I did not want to do was, first of all, be like Tony, so the both of us walked the same, looked the same, had the same kind of carriage and bearing and so forth. I don't think that Jerry, my part, or Geraldine, would do it as well. Tony walked much better. He was more convincing in a sense as a woman, you know, and he would. He was the leader. I was the follower. I only reacted. I didn't act. Tony dreamed everything up. I would react. I would be more klutzy. I couldn't walk right. I was bow-legged. I was this. I keep falling over. I deliberately did not want to do the correct things to make me impersonate a woman well, in other words.
How did you know that you had it to your satisfaction, where you felt that this wouldn't be just some vaudeville farce, but that it could work?
I don't know if Tony told you the story, but I think it was Tony's idea, either his or mine, but I think it was his. When we, after about 5 days of makeup tests and everything, all day long, and wigs and so forth, we finally, I had my makeup guy and then Tony sitting here, and we would do it together. We both looked and said, I think this is pretty good. And then as I remember it, either I said to Tony or Tony said to me, come with me. And I think it was Tony. We're on the Goldwyn lot. And he brought us into the ladies' room. Did he tell you this?
No.
We go down to the commissary where they had a huge ladies' room thing. And we marched straight in. We were in costume, the old flapper costumes. So it looked like we were out of a period movie that could be shooting on the lot. We went into the ladies' room, into the powder room section of it, you know, with all of the mirrors, and the girls are all there making up and chatting and this and that. We walked in and put on our lipstick or this and that and just, are we ready? etc. Just said a couple of things back for. Not one girl batted an eyeball except to say, "Hi, girls," or whatever. We went out, went right to Billy's office, said, "Billy, this is what we just did." Billy said, "That's it. Don't change it. Don't do a thing."
Nighty-night, Emily.
Toodaloo.
Oh, about that toodaloo.
Steady, boy. Just keep telling yourself you're a girl.
I'm a girl.
You're a girl.
I'm a girl. I'm a girl. I'm a girl. I'm a girl. I'm a... Get a load of that rhythm section. I'm a girl. I'm a girl. I'm a girl. I'm a girl.
I didn't realize that I was doing my mother until I had a shot taken with her about the second or third week on the set in costume. And she was right beside me, and we both grinned. And I looked like a sister, a younger sister of hers. I had the wig and the makeup, the bee sting lips, the whole damn thing. I didn't realize that I was unconsciously doing a face like my mother.
The end of Some Like It Hot is one of the great endings to a film. Joey Brown with that great face and voice. You're next to him.
I'm good at level.
Now, you know the Wild thing? The great Billy Wilder. Billy and Izzy Diamond, IAL Diamond, his partner, who co-wrote it with him. I believe that Billy, to this day, says, we couldn't remember who wrote the line, which one of us came up, because they, back and forth and kicking back and forth with dialogue all the time. Billy would be the ultimate decider, of what stays in, what doesn't. But the line, it was one of the few times that we've ever shot the last scene last. Usually it's out of sequence. It just so happened that that was the last thing we shot. But for a couple of days afterwards, Billy was going to reshoot a few things. And they had to finish the scene. They had no line until the night before. They didn't know how to end the scene. So Izzy or Billy came up with that line. But they did not think that that line was going to work, and they were planning to reshoot. But they had to at least have the scene, and then maybe reshoot the last line with one angle. They wrote the line and put it in, and then they kept thinking, we've got to come up with a line. They couldn't. And so they previewed it with that line in. They never knew, even Billy, with all of his knowledge, and all of the great comedies that he has shot, did not know how good a line it was.
Well, nobody's perfect.
I hear that you have an opinion about Marilyn Monroe. Well, certainly not unfavorable, that kind of veers from what is sort of the accepted point of view that we now get from people who knew her and worked with her. I think most people who knew her are so loath to give any kind of credence to the almost heartless characterization of just an empty-headed blonde that they bend over backwards and go in the other direction. And she was a great artist, and she was a tremendous actress, and maybe the truth lies somewhere in between.
The truth is in between, in my opinion. Let me preface it by saying that Marilyn was not very easy to work with. She was extremely difficult to work with, but I enjoyed it, and I enjoyed the relationship. We got along great. I loved her. And from the very beginning, there was a kind of a mutual respect, and we became friends. But the friendship would go just so far. You could feel in sitting and talking that after a while there'd be a scrim. She'd just drop a scrim. Being armchair analyst, I think that's, don't get too close to me. But I don't want to get hurt. I've been there. I don't think she was happy at all. Her marriages didn't work. This great, incredible career that she strove for so desperately when she was younger was a total disappointment and an enigma and a problem, because she couldn't make a move without 8,000 people, deluging her. She'd just practically have to hide out or else appear in public with an entourage or something. But she was just this huge symbol. And then on top of it, she wasn't taken seriously as an actress. And that's when she started studying with Lee Strasberg and with Paula, who became her practically her road company mother, in a way, you know, taking care of her, and was with her every second. When she was shooting a scene, Paula would be on the set.
Paula was?
Paula Strasberg, Lee Strasberg's wife.
Okay.
And Lee Strasberg, of course, the actor studio. I admired her greatly for trying and striving, you know. She had the whole world in her hand, as far as most girls in the world would think, I'm sure. She was studying with Lee. She wanted to do this and strive to do that. Whenever Billy would say cut, now we're talking about one of the world's great writers and directors and so forth, she might look at him, but she'd immediately look at Paula too, who would nod or like that, and then she'd say, could I do it again? She had this terrific dependence on somebody else, which means there's great insecurity there. In the meantime, she's the biggest star in the world. But there was a great insecurity. Billy would never say cut most of the time. She would say cut in the middle of a scene for no reason. I mean, we never knew why. And I once asked her, I said, when you say cut, what happens? She says, I don't know, but something goes on up here to saying no. Mm-hmm. Her whole approach to acting was wrong in many ways. She was too aware and looking too much at what she was doing. That's why this thing was saying no. I mean, we all have a little light in the back. We know what we're doing. You have to control the character. The character shouldn't control you. But it worked for her because something was going on between her and that lens. Even if I'd look at times and say, nobody's home. Mm-hmm. Nobody is home. I love you, my dear girl, but you're not concentrating on me. You're talking to somebody else.
Something about her essence, though.
Be me.
Something about her essence rather than the performance always registered.
Then I'd go to the rushes saying, I don't know why Billy printed this one because it's not going to work. And I wouldn't even look at myself. I'd stare at her. I was mesmerized. Her performance was terrific. She was wonderful. Something was going on, you know. She had a terrific thing there. What I admired now, with these so-called criticisms, what I admired tremendously about Marilyn was she did have a good comedy sense. The thing that I admired most of all was that although she may not have had a great talent for this or for that or for anything else, and overall a fair talent as an actress, she could use what talents she had more fully than any actor I've ever known. I really believe that. She created that entire character of hers, the voice, the looks, the expressions, everything. That didn't come from some director. Those are things that out of her instinct and intelligence, she slowly put together. And she developed this character, which stayed pretty much the same through all her films, and that's okay. So it was a personality actor, really, more than anything. But she could use what talents she did have much more fully than the average actor, which is why she would stop, I think. Unless that thing felt right for her, it wasn't going to end up as well as she could do it. And she didn't care if it was 40 takes or 1 take. She would do it until it was right for her. I admire her for that, as frustrating as it might have been for other people.
Doesn't it then become for the other actors? When the scene is right for her, that's the print. You think it's your 16th best out of 40, yes. But it's her best, and you're stuck with it.
Yeah. Now, never did she mean to be selfish. That seems selfish. It isn't. She was doing the best she could and working the only way she knew how to give the best performance she could. If she thought it was selfish, I'm sure she'd feel guilty as hell. She never, or certainly didn't mean it that way. And the continual lateness was not out of temperament, or the star is keeping them waiting, or any baloney like that. She literally had trouble coming out of that dressing room and facing the scene. And until she could psych herself up, and she was ready, you had to sit and wait. But it was not temperament, ever.
Those factors being in place, about her disposition, about her approach to acting, was she able really to react? Or could she just deliver, did she get herself into a mindset and say, this is what I'm going to do?
Yes, but on the wrong level. Frankly, I'll be critical of her as an actor now. We are all guilty of this to a certain extent. she could react, but it would be already planned out. I'm convinced of it. I could tell by looking in her eyes. In other words, if I read the line one way, she'd react. If I read it a totally different way, either she'd stop, or she might react the same way. Or maybe she'd pick up on it.
So there's no
You see what I
jazz
mean?
element
In
this.
other words,
There's
it
no
was worked
doing it
out
together.
with very hard work in her mind. But basically, that's the wrong way. In other words, she wasn't really going with the flow. If really good actors are in a scene, they get the feeling, as you would as an audience get the feeling, they're not listening for cues. When I'm really in a scene with a guy, if it's going very well, and I'm not saying this happens all the time, it doesn't, but you get so that you're listening to what's really underneath. We're not aware of the words we're saying. I know what I'm trying to say to you, but I'm not trying to pick all of the words. The words are just happening. When you do a scene, you and I are really doing a scene. If we're working together really well, we're not listening for cues. That's automatic. That happens. We're overlapping and we're coming in under. And when I get your idea and I get the thought and I want to say something, I'll say it. It happens to come out that it's timed. But you don't really think about it that way when you're really connected to somebody. Marilyn did not work that way. She couldn't.
Can verify or correct that when you were doing Save the Tiger, you got so into this character that it was actually affecting the way you felt moment to moment in your life.
The character in Save the Tiger was really walking around having a nervous breakdown. And he knew he was under stress, but he didn't really realize it. He was a walking wreck. And in going back and forth from work, suddenly in my car, driving to locations, I'd suddenly be going along the freeway and I'd start tears would start, and I'm shaking. Now I'm worried. I'm pulling over to the side and I'm stopping. A cop came up at one point, and I was just visibly shaking and sobbing. And he said, "What the hell? This is now 8 o'clock in the morning." Yeah. He said, I wasn't drinking. I said, I'm sorry, I don't know what in the heck it is. I said, I'll be all right in a minute. And he stayed and he waited for me. He knew who I was and everything, and I was okay, and I went on. Same thing happened coming at home. So that suddenly dawned on me after a day. Now I'm thinking, I've got to see a doctor. But I'm shooting every day. What the hell is going on with me? I didn't realize that what happened to the character was happening to me. That's scary. The minute I realized it, it stopped. Isn't that funny? The minute I realized what was going on, I said, whoop, and I was able to say, hey, and back off and control it. But I got so into that sucker that he was taking over. Isn't that funny? It's a terrible feeling. A terrible feeling, and it should never happen. The worst part of the feeling was, as an actor, I almost felt mortified. I said, how dare you? What are you doing, you dummy? Don't let that happen, you know.
And nothing like that has ever happened?
Not anywhere near to that extent. When we were talking about Marilyn, I said that you know, we all have a little light in the back of our mind going on, but that she was too aware, I think, of the words and the moment and the cue or this and that. The opposite thing is not being aware at all. You really do. You have to be aware of what you're doing, and yet you're deep into it. It sounds like a dichotomy there. But there's always a little light in the back that's in control, because otherwise the character is in control of you. And that is not good. I mean, one would think, let's say a young method actor might think in his fantasies that the greatest thing that could ever happen would be to become Hamlet, to literally become Hamlet, right? To forget reality. So when he comes to be or not to be, he would literally be thinking those words for the first time. It would literally happen. There's only one thing wrong. He might be in the theater and he might very well turn upstage and say, wait a minute, to be or not to be? My God, that's the question. And the whole audience says, what'd he say? What's the matter with his ass? I can't hear him. You know, it's a lousy performance. That's what's wrong with it. Reality does not make a great performance. There's a difference between reality and dramatic reality.
A lot of movie talk in these first two shows with Jack Lemmon. We didn't get to The Odd Couple. We didn't get to some interesting stories about the early days of TV. And Jack has agreed to tape some more, and shortly we'll see another program with him. But for now, see you later.
And we'll get it right.
Thanks for watching Cleveland Live Music. It's awfully bright out here. I'd click on another one of my videos. Quit looking into the sun. Your mother told you not to do that. Please hit the subscribe button. And if you want to support the channel more, there's GoFundMe and Patreon information in the video descriptions. Ooh, ooh!